Hello, and welcome back to our kitchen. Today we have a kind of a special episode because we have a special guest that I hope you'll enjoy listening to. We have David Boström from who is the CEO of the Embracer Games Archive. David, did I got it right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay, cool. Hey, David.
Nice being here.
So, David, there's a lot to talk about because what you do is fascinating. I've got goosebumps since I met you, so it's very interesting to hear from you. First of all, just an introduction to what we're going to cook today is a recipe from Liguria, so from the border with France and by the seaside, south of France, called Brandacujun, which is basically an appetizer made of codfish and potatoes. You'll check it out as we go. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Where do we start from? I mean, it's like you have a very long life full of events, right?
Yeah.
So, before we get to what you're doing now, started off as a YouTuber, well, a gamer, a professional gamer.
Yeah, I've been playing video games my whole life, and I really mean it. Starting at the age of 5, playing Game & Watch, the Nintendo handheld systems. So I had a father who also loved video games.
Okay.
So I had the luxury of buying home everything.
Okay.
From the Nintendo, then the Super Nintendo, and Nintendo 64, PlayStation. Yeah, you know the rest.
Yeah, and then you started your YouTube channel.
Yeah, and like 15 years ago, I started a YouTube show together with my girlfriend and her brother, actually. So the 3 of us. And it became quite popular in Sweden, and we've been doing that for like 15 years now.
And you still do it?
Yeah.
And you said you're famous in Sweden?
No, not yeah, a little bit famous within the video game scene. So we do videos about gaming exhibitions, visit other collectors, and also I have a big personal video game collection. So a lot of videos is being done in my gaming cave, basically.
Okay. And then, as being a YouTuber, professional gamer, and then, you've done that for a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And then one day, you said, but you were also working on a warehouse.
Yeah, I've been working in warehouses my whole life, basically, being a team manager and a work leader, leading the work for others.
Okay.
So I really love doing that. But when I was near 40 years old, I started thinking, I'm 42 now, but when I was nearing my 40 years old, I started thinking maybe I should do something else. Okay. And like 1 week after I started thinking that, I saw the job ad that they were searching people for like building this video game archive. And I read the job ad for like 10 times, and I felt this is my job. Okay. It's like meant in the stars that I'm gonna have this.
Cool, but it's interesting also because this is the first game archive in the world, right?
Yeah, we are very unique. There aren't many video game archives around the world. There aren't that many.
Okay.
So this is.
And then you were in Sweden, it's like everything got together and perfect.
And it was quite near where I live. I have to commute I have to go 1.5 hours by car to just get to the archive, but it's no problem getting to work with my dream passion.
That's incredible. I find it incredible. And as I said, what you're doing is just amazing. You are basically creating the definitive archive of all boxed games ever made.
Yeah. We are building an as extensive archive as possible of all physical video games that are being released. So it's like our aim is the games that you as a customer could have bought in the store or have bought online.
Okay.
So not the digital games, but the physical games.
Okay, cool. And what the fascinating thing is how these things work, right? Because there's how many games have been made? Did you make an assumption of how many you have
Today we have 70,000 objects in the archive, but if you look at all games ever released, we are talking like 100,000, 300,000. There are like maybe millions. There are many, and we also in the long run want to have variants of the games as well. But now in the beginning, we're happy with having just one copy of it.
And what we see in the back here is what, when was this video made?
It's like a year ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to get 70,000
I can start from the beginning. Let me just 3 years ago.
Okay.
The idea to the archive come from Lars Wingefors, who is the co-founder and CEO for Embracer Group, and he had this big personal collection. So it was around 50,000 objects at a time, and he started thinking that this collection, at that time it was stored in the underground warehouse. Okay. So he started thinking it would be better if it could be of use and serve a purpose and be helpful for the video game industry and the video game culture. So it was his idea to transcend his personal collection to be a starting foundation for a video game archive. So when we started, we had these 50,000 objects to start with.
And what is the ultimate goal you're setting yourselves? I mean, it's it's something interesting because, of course, you're not doing it to sell it or to what's the goal?
We want to be a helpful resource for others. Nobody has really taken on the mission to preserve physical video games, and this is something that we believe is important and somebody needs to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because just like other cultural forms, I think this will always be a need to be able to look back and see how the industry has evolved over time. Yeah. And with the help of our archive, it can give great possibilities for others to research deeper into the history.
We haven't been a very good industry in keeping track of what we've done so far. So it must be incredibly hard to look at everything because I guess that books, movies have different type of shelf life as well, right? So every game, you have special editions, you have different formats and so on. So what's the current view of how you do things? You've got are you doing per game, per platform? How it's
you mean how we work right now? Right now we are actually trying to build on a good ground as possible. Okay. And actually the best buys for us right now, or the best acquisitions, is to find a collector who's collected for a long time. Okay. And maybe has a complete collection. We have bought 2 bigger collections from. One was from a collector in Austria who has been collecting basically his whole life for 30 years. So the games owned him more than he owned the games, basically. And they had his whole basements were filled of games. And our acquisitioner started talking to him, and eventually he wanted to sell his collection to us. Okay. Because collectors also think that it's better that the games can be of use, that they can serve a purpose, and that they can do in our archive.
Okay. And I guess it's something that you have to build because there's no such thing as a price list for these things, right? So how do you gauge what's the right price for this?
Yeah, our acquisitioner Thomas, he's very good. He has a wide knowledge of video games and the value and stuff like that. But it's also important for us that when we find a collection, it's both we and the seller need to be happy.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So because what I find is that many people may have a different idea of what the value of what they have is, right?
But we've also noticed that a lot of people maybe have collected for 20 or 30 years, and they have a personal idea of building their own museum or their own archive or something like that. But they soon realize when starting there's so much to think about. You have to have a premises, you need to sort everything out, maybe have a database, and doing that by yourself, that's a lot of work. Yeah. So
how many people work in the organization?
We are 5 people in the archive right now.
Okay.
So it's me, the CEO, leading the work, and we have our archive chief, Natalia. Of course, we need someone who's good with archiving. Archive rules and everything related to archiving.
And does she have a background of that?
Yeah, she also had an education and background working in archives basically her whole life. So it's perfect for the roles. And we also have Jukka, who is our technical engineer. We need, of course, somebody who's good with the technical stuff. Old computers, old system, you need to check them and see if they are working. And he's also a professional in building databases.
Okay.
And we have Thomas, as I mentioned, our acquisitioner, and we also have Mikael, who is our archive administrator, like do the work in the archive.
So what's a typical day in the office for you?
It's a good variety of like being here in Italy and talking about archive. Now we focus a lot of building the database and register all the games into the database.
Okay.
Actually, this week we have just finished iteration 1. So now every object that is in the archive is in our database as well. And we have also started iterations 2, which is taking photos of every object and put a label on everything. So it's a lot of work just building the archive and know what we have in the archive.
Yeah, of course, of course. Does it involve as well testing the games, as in if they work?
As of now, we presume that everything works until proven not. But we have a playroom right now, and our goal is that every game that it's in the archive we can also play. But we haven't fixed that one yet because we basically started from scratch. But
I dare the day when somebody takes a game from the archive, tries to play it, it doesn't work, and you have to go back to the drawing board. The main goal, of course, is preserving the history of games and so on. But you mentioned about research and giving the access to game designers who want to check out what a game was like and so on.
It's very important for us that the games in the archive can be a helpful resource for others doing video game preservation. It could be like helping an author and researcher, a school and education, and like a journalist, in different ways.
I find it, that's important. And is it open to the public? How does it work?
No, it's not open to the public, but if you have a special work that you are doing and you contact us, we are more than willingly want to help you in some way. So for example, we have this guy from PlayOn, who's last year there was Atari 2600 Plus. I don't know if it was a new Atari. So when they developed it, they needed to try every game out. So he came to us, this guy, and he wanted to try out every Atari game. We have around 400 of them. So he took his prototype Atari 2600 Plus to the archive, and he's tried out all the games.
Okay. Wow, that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Right now you're almost in the end of phase 1, as you said, right? Working on this. Do you see that this is going to end at some point, and then you're going to, go into maintenance mode, or?
I think this is like an eternal journey. Like we will never get every game because there are so many games out there, and it's an ongoing project, and hopefully people after me is gonna take over, and But I really want to establish the archive and that it can be helpful and that people get to hear about it.
Of course.
And maybe today, talking to you, can give some people watching this video like knowing that the archive exists.
So if you say okay, people want to know that we exist, and that's I guess you've just started doing the marketing for your archive because you're communicating. You want to communicate when things are already active.
Yeah,
and
we are
running,
right? Still in an early phase, I used to say. But right now we are doing a lot in our country, Sweden, like helping researchers and schools and stuff like that. We also need to learn how the archive can be of use, and that's good for us trying out different things in Sweden.
So if somebody finds out about you and want to reach out, what you would like them to reach out for? Is it more like, hey, I've got a lot of games, I want to give them to you, or I want to sell them to you? Is that something that you're considering?
Yeah, they can of course reach out to us, and also maybe you're like writing a book and need to take photos for something or something like that.
Okay.
It's like different. We have helped these book publishers from UK, Lost in Cult. They do books about older video games. So they reach out to us, and this summer they were at us like 2 weeks, and they are doing a book about controllers for video games. So they did a lot of voting in the archive for their book. So yeah, if you have some requests, just reach out to us.
You should probably write all your contact details in the footer of the video, because Oh, that's very
But
interesting.
a lot of people really are happy for what we are doing with building this archive. We have had a lot of positive feedback for us doing this. So people really want to help, and people email me quite often, and how can I help you in some way? But right now it's kind of hard helping out remotely.
It is, yeah. It's the other thing is, you know, of course there's again a lot of games. Are you focusing on specific games right now? Is it something that you're looking at covering everything?
Yeah, we want our oldest object is the Magnavox Odyssey from 1972, and that's like the first object being released for commercial.
Okay. And you have that, right?
We have that one, yes. That's our oldest object, and we are also interested in, of course, all the newer games, like PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch and so on. But it's very hard to buy games for the current format. If we would buy every PlayStation 5 game, we would have one person just watching out for every game being released. So the most efficient way is to wait for maybe 10 years, and hopefully somebody have a complete PlayStation 5 collection eventually. So now it's also more important to search the older games as for now.
Okay. Is there something that you think is going to be harder to find, or stuff that you already know that's going to be like your most your unicorn, or?
Yeah, maybe the games that people don't talk that much about today will be like the missed out games that maybe will be more popular later on.
Okay.
So we treat every game as they are important.
Okay, you mean stuff that's already been released recently, right? And then people don't consider. Okay. Do you think that it should be that a normal procedure that if someone makes a game, it sends them a copy to you?
Yeah, that's like our dream vision eventually, that when studios make games, they send a copy to the archive. That would be awesome. Okay.
Well, guys, if you listen, if you're in the industry and you're making games, I guess it's one of the important things. I think that, as you say, you're not the only archive, but I think it should be a good practice that you save at least 10 copies for future generations and stuff, because and no matter what kind of game you've made, because you wouldn't believe the games I've worked on that weren't successful at all, and then maybe 10 years later, oh, you remember this really cool game? No, it didn't sell much.
Because every game, I think, is important for someone. Every game, everyone has their own personal favorite game.
Yes. There's one thing which we also consider. We have recently released a game based, which was the sort of the spiritual sequel of Master of Magic, right? Yeah. Which we called Master of Magic. We got the rights and everything from Atari. And again, this was like another story. But incredibly enough, people think they played a game that was different. It's like you remember playing a game, you had a lot of fun with it, but in the end, that wasn't really a great game. It was just, it was an experience that you enjoyed, but it wasn't, the game itself was, not so great. Maybe it was buggy, maybe AI wasn't working and so on, because we see a lot of people that played Master of Magic back in the days, and they say, oh, the best game ever made, a great game, and so on. And then you go and read the reviews of Master of Magic back then, and it was like, the AI is shitty, and it was a buggy game, it didn't work very well. So I find it super interesting that your memory of a game is always different from what the game is actually itself. So what you're doing is also important for that, right?
But it was also nice if you and me play the same game, you have your own experience and I have mine. It's very nice talking about video games because you have experienced them in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also I think if you look back, as I said, our oldest object is the Magnavox Odyssey from 1972. In that game, you basically steered two bigger pixels. It were the only thing that you could do. You could steer them, and there were no graphics. So you have this plastic overlay that you hang on to your CRT. Okay. So it was more like a board game than it's like a mix of board game and video games. But it's fascinating to see that from 1972, you steer 2 pixels and look at the games today. what a great journey video games has made during this 50 years.
And it's not a lot of time.
No, it's not that a lot of. If you compare it to music and books and movies, they have been around for much longer.
What do you think is happening with Sweden? Well, Sweden is always so edgy in terms of music, in terms of coming up with these video games. We've got a huge video games culture there.
Yeah.
What do you think is movies as well? What do you think is the secret
What's
sauce?
the secret? I think one part of it is that it's very common, or was very common in the 90s, for us having computers at home. It was a common thing, so a lot of people, and also the Commodore 64 was quite common in Sweden as well. So maybe that's like a part of it, and maybe that we are very creative.
Yeah, you're very creative. All the cool music that comes from Sweden, all the movies and video games. It's incredible. It's a small country. How many people in Sweden?
This is now like 11, 12 millions.
So it's like a population of London, right?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, when you
to
say
think
it,
about
it's actually fascinating. And I hope that also our archive can be like a landmark for Sweden. That people know that in Sweden, in Karlstad, there is this archive for all the video games in the world.
So right now we have cooked the potatoes and the fish. We're going to put everything in here. Okay. Alrighty. So what's next? You said. What's the next big challenge you have ahead of you now? Keep going, keep working. What's your view of what is coming next?
One thing that's very important for us is to network with others. We think for a greater result and effort, we can, if we collaborate with others doing preservation within video games, we can gain more, basically. So we are doing a lot of networking and also expanding, of course, the collection in the archive with more games. And a big challenge is also the database and keeping track of everything that we have in the archive. As I mentioned, we've done with iteration 1 and we've started with iterations 2. Today we have like 12,000 games being photographed and have a label on them. And then we also need to prepare for iteration 3, when we probably will maybe try the games and see if they work, open up and see what's inside the games, etc.
Can you tell us what's happening when you receive the games? What is happening?
It's like the best day at work when we receive a delivery of a collection. We used to we don't get deliveries every day, but if we get a bigger delivery, for example, last week we got the Famicom Disk System, a complete set of all the games released in Japan. I think there are like 180 of them. It's a good thing that we gather everybody in the archive and unpack it together and sort it out and then put it into the shelves and then...
do you video it?
From YouTube? Yeah, we have a YouTube show because we really want to share what we are doing in the archive.
So there is a YouTube channel of the archive.
Embracing Games Archive. So we are releasing a video like 2 times a month and give people updates of what's happening. So we try to film and document as much as possible. And then we actually got 3 donations last week. One from Milestone, one from THQ and one from Limited Run Games. That are also companies under the Embracer Group umbrella. So they donated a lot of games to us, so that will be nice to film and share with everyone else.
So if you're in a trip abroad and you receive a big donation or a big shipment, do you ask your colleagues to wait for you?
Yeah.
Or can they go ahead and do it?
No, they can go ahead and do it. But I think it depends on what type of delivery there is. But I think it's fun that we do it together because all of us love video games and it's fun doing it together. It's more fun doing it together.
Of course, yeah. And then we'll have to open the bottle of wine. Which, what do we have today? We have, again, north of Italy, north of Italy for the recipe. So south of Italy, Sicily for the wine, Donna Fugata. Starting from being a video game fan to being a YouTuber and then being the owner or the CEO of the archive. It must be fascinating, right? Kind
of. Actually, it's quite hard to believe that I have this job and this opportunity to go such a meaningful thing for the video game industry.
Was it hard to sort of settle, because you know it's as a job, it's you almost have to come up with everything. It's not really an existing job, but you have to follow a you know a list of things to do, or there is a specific training or something. So how did you come up with solutions? And you know it's
actually it's a good question, but I just went with my gut feeling basically.
Okay.
The first thing I realized that I really needed a great team. I need professional people around me. So I'm very, very proud of the team that I found with the archive chief, our technician and acquisitioner, and the archive administrator. I wouldn't have come this far with the archive if it wasn't for them. So I'm so proud of the work that we have done. Because building an archive, it's hard to describe to another person how much there is to think about creating an archive from scratch.
Yeah, no, it must be.
And we don't have anyone to like go to. How do you build an archive for video games? There isn't anyone like.
Yeah, there's no YouTube video about making that. Yeah.
There's no tutorial how to fix this. So there's so much things that you want to do, but you cannot do everything from start. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
But I'm very happy with the work that we've done so far.
You must be proud. You must be proud. Congratulations. Well, congratulations to your career and to your project. And I would say thank you for making this happen, because I must say it's not only fascinating, but it's also a good service for the industry. So thank you. Thanks for joining us, guys, and I'll see you next time.